to be involved with trafficking. And as he put in the PSR, he thought it would be a quick way to make money. He realizes now that that's certainly not the case. We submitted a couple letters on his behalf. We, as well as filing a affidavit of indigency. He doesn't have funds to pay the mandatory fine in this case. He reported faithfully when he was on probation, again, bounced around on jobs. But we'd ask you to consider all of that. We're asking for a prison term of 3 years, 1 year on the firearm specification, and 2 years, which would be mandatory on the F2 count. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Washington, what do you want to tell me before I sentence you?
I would like to tell you I apologize for my actions and the course of what I did. And, you know, I know it was a mistake, you know what I'm saying? I just was under the impression that, like, I had to make some quick money, but, you know, ultimately, I mean, it's landed me in a bad situation, so, you know, and I, you know, I'm remorseful for what I did, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I just plan to basically, when I get out, you know, do what I got to do to, you know, get my life together.
How are you going to do that?
I was planning on, you know, getting my CDL when I got out, basically making a good attempt at basically doing things the right way.
Okay. So who were you? I mean, who were you selling to on a regular basis?
Just Brandy, and the lady.
Okay. Where were you working at the time?
I was working at the gas station at Fairport.
All right, anything else you want to say?
No, that'd be about it.
Okay. Mr. DePiero?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the state recommends a term of imprisonment of 3 years on the underlying offense, the F2 aggravated possession, and with the 1 year firearm spec being prior to and consecutive to would be a total of 4 years. The prison term to be imposed on the F3, the state would recommend it run concurrent. So a total of 4 years prison in this case. It's not the defendant's first felony. He sold drugs multiple times while he's on probation, felony probation. And so 4 years is the appropriate number, is the state's position. Part of the agreement, the defendant agreed to voluntarily forfeit all the items seized, so we'd ask for an order of forfeiture pursuant to his voluntary forfeiture. Thank you.
No such thing as easy money, right? All right, I've reviewed the pre-sentence report, and I've listened to Mr. Washington, listened to counsel, considered all the provisions of 29, 29, 11, 12, and 13. So this is a stiff price you're going to pay for trying to make easy money. And part of the problem is you're not, while you were engaged in this, not really concerned about where this stuff was going, what was actually in this stuff, right? Because you didn't make this meth, right? It was
No.
already in the form that probably came from Mexico up through the border, so you don't have any idea what's in that stuff.
No.
Okay, it could be fentanyl in it, could be xylazine in it, could be any one of a number of things in it. Now, I assume, how old's your oldest right now? 6?
5.
5? What, 5, 3, and how old?
Was 5, 4, 3, and then I got two younger children.
Okay, so you got 5 kids.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to presume you don't want them say, in 10 years buying drugs from somebody on the street,
No.
right? So you ought to look at what you do when you get out through the lens of how it affects your kids.
Yes, sir.
Or not. I mean, that's up to you. You're going to do what you want to do. You're going to go to prison, and it's not going to be pleasant, but you're either going to figure out what you have to do to come out and do what you told me your goal is, or you'll just kind of fall into that trap and keep going back once you come out. But that's up to you. So on count 1, I'm going to sentence you to 36 months. I'm sorry, count 3. Count 4, there's, I'm going to sentence you to 1 year on the mandatory on the firearm specification. And on the underlying offense, a definite minimum term of 2 years up to an indefinite maximum of 3.5 years, or 3 years rather, in prison. And obviously the spec and the underlying term are by statute consecutive to one another. The 2 to 3 year term is mandatory. I'm sorry, on count, never mind. Counts 3 and 4 will be concurrent to each other. So you're going to do a total of 3 up to 4 years in prison. Whether you do any time beyond that 3 years is up to the criteria of the Department of Corrections, and it'll be based on your activity while you're at the institution. You're going to get credit for 139 days served. The fine will be waived due to your indigency, and the costs are assessed. When you get out, what is it, 18 months to 3, Rocco, on the PRC?
Make absolutely sure, Judge. I believe that's right, but I want to see it. Yes, Your Honor.
All right, when you get out, you'll be on post-release control to the parole authority for at least 18 months, potentially up to 3 years. They will place conditions on you. If you violate the conditions of your post-release control, parole authority could send you back to prison for up to 9 months for each violation, up to 1/2 of my sentence. If your violation of post-release control is a new felony, you could get an additional consecutive prison sentence for the violation, the maximum of which would be 12 months or the time you have left under post-release control, whichever is more. Is there anything else, Mr. DePiero? And the items that were agreed to be forfeited are forfeited to the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, that's it.
All right, anything else, Mr. Fatika?
No, thank you, Your
And
Honor.
the remaining counts are dismissed. All right, Mr. Washington, decide while you're there how you want to proceed in life.
To please the court, I'll put the terms of the agreement on the record at this time.
Okay.
Pursuant to the agreement, the defendant will plead guilty to count 1, felony the 3rd degree, having weapons while under disability. Also count 2, F3, weapons under disability. And count 9, which is a felony of the 4th degree, receiving stolen property, and the attached 18-month firearm specification. After guilty pleas are entered, after findings of guilt at the time of sentencing, the state would move to dismiss all of the remaining charges on the indictment. As to sentencing, the state could recommend any prison term. The state will not recommend 9 years, the maximum. The defendant, whatever the state's recommendation is, does not have to agree with it. He does not have to join in it. The terms of this offer allow for the defendant to request a minimum prison term in this case. As part of the agreement, the defendant would voluntarily forfeit all items seized at the time of his arrest, including, that would be the firearms and the ammunition in particular. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, that is my understanding of this morning's hearing. I've had a chance to fully pre-try this matter with the state. I believe full discovery has been provided. I've also had a chance to discuss this matter with my client. He is prepared this morning to enter a change of plea. He understands that by doing so, he'll be waiving certain constitutional rights, and no threats or promises have been made in order for him to do so, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Kennedy, how old are you?
34, sir.
How far did you go through school?
I finished the 9th grade, but I have my GED.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, sir.
And are you able to read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes, sir.
In the last 48 hours, have you taken any drugs or alcohol or any prescription medication?
Yes, sir.
What have you taken?
My prescribed meds for mental health.
All right, do you know what the medication is?
No, sir.
All right. When is the last time you took it?
This morning, before court.
Does it affect your ability to understand what's going on?
No, sir.
All right, did you get a copy of the indictment in this case?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions about it?
No, sir.
All right, so on my understanding, you're going to plead guilty to count 1, having weapons under disability, a felony 3, count 2, having weapons while under disability, a felony 3, and count 9, receiving stolen property, a felony 4, as well as a firearm specification, a felony 4 to count 9, and then the remaining charges will be dismissed at sentencing. Is that your understanding?
Yes, sir.
All right, before I accept your guilty plea, I need to determine that you know and understand the constitutional rights you'll be waiving, the consequences of your guilty plea, and the maximum penalty I could give you, and I need to be satisfied that your guilty plea is being made freely, knowingly, and voluntarily. I'm going to ask you questions. If you don't understand a question or you want to talk to Mr. Watson some more, let me know and I'll give you more time. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
You have a constitutional right to have a trial, either to me or to a jury of 12 Lake County citizens. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
If you go to a jury trial, all 12 members must agree to a guilty verdict before you can be found guilty. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
If you go to trial, the prosecutor will call witnesses to testify against you. Do you understand the prosecutor must prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt at a trial?
Yes, sir.
After the witnesses are done testifying for the prosecutor, you have the constitutional right to have your lawyer cross-examine the witnesses. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
If you go to trial, you have the right to have witnesses come here and testify for you. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
If those witnesses refuse to come to court, I'll issue an order called a subpoena to make them come and testify. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
You have the right to testify at trial if you want to. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
You have the constitutional right to not testify at trial if you do not want to. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
If you decide not to testify at trial, nobody is permitted to comment on that decision. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
If you go to trial and you're found guilty, you have the right to appeal the guilty finding. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
If you file an appeal, you have the constitutional right to have a lawyer represent you in the appeal. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
If you could not afford a lawyer, one will be provided at no cost. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
If you file an appeal, you're entitled to have a transcript of all the hearings in this case. Do you understand that right?
Yes, sir.
Are you waiving that right?
Yes, sir.
If you could not afford a copy of those transcripts, they'd be given to you at no cost. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
If you plead guilty today, you will not have the right to appeal the guilty finding. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions about any of your rights?
No, sir.
You still want to plead guilty to these charges?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand by pleading guilty, you're fully admitting your guilt to the charges?
Yes, sir.
You understand by pleading guilty to these felonies that you're voluntarily giving up your freedom for whatever period of time I could sentence you to prison, to jail, or to community control.
Yes, sir.
Count 1, having weapons while under disability is a felony 3. It carries a maximum prison sentence of 36 months and a maximum fine of $10,000. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Count 2, having weapons while under disability is also a felony 3 with a 36-month maximum prison sentence and a $10,000 maximum fine. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Count 9, receiving stolen property is a felony 4. It carries an 18-month maximum prison sentence and a $5,000 maximum fine. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
There's also a firearm specification attached to count 9, and that requires an 18-month mandatory prison sentence that must be served prior to and consecutive to the receiving stolen property sentence in count 9. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Any questions about that?
No, sir.
All right. Now, I could give you a consecutive sentence. That means one sentence after another for the separate offenses. If I did that, you face a maximum prison term of 9 years and a maximum fine of $2,500. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Are you on post-release control to the parole authority right now?
No, sir.
Do you understand that your felony conviction will prevent you from owning or possessing a firearm?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that if a prison sentence, or after the prison sentence in this case, that you might have to serve a period of post-release control for up to 2 years under the parole authority?
Yes, sir.
And if you are placed on post-release control and violate any conditions, the parole authority could return you to prison for up to 9 months for each violation, up to 1/2 of my sentence. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
If that violation is a new felony, you could get an additional consecutive prison sentence for the violation. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And if that were to occur, the maximum prison sentence for that violation would be the greater of 12 months or the time left under post-release control. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that after you serve the mandatory portion, the 18-month on the firearm specification, that you would be eligible for judicial release? After that, do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right, now, has anybody promised you I would be lenient on you just because you're pleading guilty today?
No, sir.
Has anybody promised you what I will sentence you to in this case?
No, sir.
You understand I do not have to follow the sentencing recommendation of either the prosecutor or your lawyer.
Yes, sir.
Have you had enough time to talk with Mr. Watson before pleading guilty today?
Yes, sir.
Has he discussed everything about your case and answered all of your questions?
Yes, sir.
Are you satisfied with the advice he has given you?
Yes, sir.
Have you been threatened or coerced in any way to plead guilty today?
No, sir.
Are you freely, knowingly, and voluntarily entering your guilty plea?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. DePiero, if the case went to trial, what would the evidence show?
The evidence would show, Your Honor, on May 5th, 2024, the defendant, Cedric Kennedy, was in Wilwick, Lake County, Ohio, with his girlfriend, Antonia Jeter, G-E-I-T-E-R. Ms. Jeter is the owner of a Ruger pistol firearm. The defendant, when he was with her that day, took her firearm without her permission, the Ruger. Ms. Jeter asked for it back. The defendant said no. He did not give it back. So Ms. Jeter called the police. Police responded. They found the defendant to be walking on the sidewalk in Wilwick, Lake County, Ohio, confronted the defendant. The defendant was found to have that Ruger pistol was loaded with live rounds and one in the chamber as well, in his front waistband, and he was also in possession of another pistol in his rear waistband. Or no, I'm sorry, the Ruger was in his rear waistband. He had another loaded pistol with one in the chamber in his front waistband. That was an IWI Desert Eagle pistol. Both of those guns were forwarded to the crime lab and tested and confirmed to function normally and be operable firearms. The defendant was under disability for possession of firearms. Specifically, he had been convicted of felony offenses of violence, Cuyahoga Common Pleas Court, F4 escape, CR 13-573-325A, on or about June 9th, 2014. There are a couple others that I'll incorporate what's written in count 1 and count 2 into my statement here instead of reading it. Also, Your Honor, the defendant previously has been convicted of or pleaded guilty to a firearm specification of the type described in 2941.141 of the revised code, being in Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas, case number CR 085122821A. That was on or about September 19, 2008. So he has a prior gun spec. That goes to the gun spec on count 9, the receiving stolen property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Anything to add to those facts?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Kennedy, did you hear what Mr. DePiero said, that the facts would show if this case went to a trial?
Yes, sir.
Are those facts true?
Yes, sir.
What is your plea to count 1, having weapons while under disability, a felony? 3.
Guilty, sir.
What is your plea to count 2, having weapons while under disability, a felony? 3.
Guilty.
What is your plea to count 9, receiving stolen property, a felony? 4.
Guilty, sir.
And what is your plea to the firearm specification to count 9?
Guilty, sir.
All right, Mr. Watson. We have an initial on page 2 in the margin of the mental health that wrote in there. Okay.
So this is the same document that we went over on page 2. The judge put on here that you're on mental health medication. So I just want you to initial right below my initials. Let's just sign right there. And put 1/8/25.
Your Honor, the defendant, Mr. Watson, and I have all signed the written plea of guilty form. Having permission, I am approaching to present that form to Your Honor.
Mr. Kennedy, is this your signature on the written plea of guilty?
Yes, sir.
And did you sign it voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
Do you want me to accept your written plea of guilty?
Yes, sir.
I'll accept the written plea of guilty. Defendant was present when Mr. Watson advised of all of his rights, made a knowing, intelligent, voluntary waiver of those rights. He understands the nature of the charge, the consequences of his guilty plea, and the maximum penalty. Find it to be knowing, intelligent, and voluntary. Will accept his plea of guilty and find him guilty of count 1, having weapons while under disability, a felony 3. Count 2, having weapons while under disability, a felony 3. Count 9, receiving stolen property, a felony 4, as well as the firearm specification to count 4. I'm going to refer this for a pre-sentence report and victim impact statement. Sentencing will be February 14, 11 o'clock, and the bond is revoked. Anything else, Mr. DePiero?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Watson?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, we're adjourned.
All right, so sentencing is on